Join the wildlands, including the 4th Wildland Ben, on another adventure as we travel the Great Ocean Road and up through the Grampians. For those unaware, the Great Ocean Road is one of the most stunning coastal roads in the world. It features amazing views of the Southern Ocean, rugged cliffs and iconic rock formations. But most important for us is the almost 250 kilometre road between Torquay and Allansford contains some of the best curves and hairpin turns this side of the country. The rough plan is to take 4 days for the trip, starting the Great Ocean Road for the Melbourne side and heading west. Once at the end, we'll go north and head through the Grampians on our way home. We had plans to perhaps stay in a motel or caravan park on some of those nights, but as you'll see, no plans survived contact with the enemy, and we ended up camping the first 2 nights out bush. Not a problem for us. In fact, a week beforehand I had a chance to test out the new lightweight tent to make sure it'd be right for this trip, and more importantly to make sure everything would fit. Apart from the upgrade from the tarp and ground sheet, we also upgraded our cooking situation to a little isobutane cooker, because it just wasn't feasible to have a campfire everywhere. Day 1 started with Ben, Jarrod and myself making the 4-hour or so trip to Geelong to meet Carl. It had been months since our last trip, and it was great just to hit the road again. After meeting Carl, it was time to head off to Torquay and onto the beginning of the Great Ocean Road, but not before we got our first look at the Southern Ocean. By this point it was around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had hoped to find a place to stay for the night in the next town, Anglesey. But after trying a few places, it was clear it was a lost cause, and we stocked up on supplies and headed bush. One of the caravan park workers had given us a map with the location of a campsite with a couple of long drops. Perfect for us. The only trouble was it was a half an hour ride down the road, and over half of that was dirt. So we backtracked a few k's, then headed inland towards the campsite, hoping we could find a closer one along the way. Spoiler, we didn't, and the road turned to dirt soon after. Now if you watched our last video, you'll know after our last dirt road shenanigans, one of Carl's panniers had broken its mount. So before this trip, he bought new, bigger and more expensive ones from China. And he was a little concerned about how they would hold up. Sure enough, not 10 minutes after telling him they were fine, he rode through a pothole and one came off.
Did you see that jerk? He dropped his notes.
But no harm done other than a few scratches, and we attached it and were on our way, and soon found our campsite for the night. Survived. Where, as is tradition, the adding of the ice to the drinks required a heated discussion.
I thought we'll put it in the big bag. Well, we had them all in there, so I thought we'd break it up a bit. We don't really have meat to get cold, so what's the matter?
After the longest day riding we've ever done, it wasn't long after dark before we headed to bed. Day 2 started off looking like we'd been visited by that wild pig that stole and drank 18 beers then tried to fight a cow. Now I didn't see any cows around, but there were plenty of empty cans. But despite all the irresponsible things we do, leaving a mess of a campsite is not one of them. And we cleaned up everything before we set off back to Anglesey for some coffee and breakfast. After an unhealthy amount of food from the Anglesey bakery, we were once again on our way back down to the Great Ocean Road, and we were ready to enjoy some of those twists and turns and awe-inspiring views we'd come so far for. After getting to Vaughan, we got stuck in traffic for about half an hour. The worst part is that had we not been on our L's, we legally could have just ridden between the cars on the side of the road and been out of traffic in 2 minutes flat.
No! Don't worry, I've got an ace up my sleeve.
Though the morning was still young, we continued on. stopping in Apollo Bay for some lunch, a pub meal of course. Then the road heads inland for a bit, and into the Great Otway National Park, where we got to experience the forest greenery and get some rest from the harsh summer sun. After heading back to the ocean, the road then passes the 12 Apostles, an attraction with only 8 apostles and approximately 20,000 tourists. And then the 7 million people coming around. We then headed inland again to find somewhere to camp, eventually settling on a stop near the town of Timboon, where we also picked up more essential supplies. It had been a long day, and almost none of the liquid supplies had been touched before we went to bed.
Pizza.
I guess that's hard to see in the morning.
It's a great white Sasquatch.
Day 3 started off quite slow. After 2 days of riding all day long, it was starting to get to us.
We need rest. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is spongy and bruised.
But after packing up and heading back south to the ocean, we thought we'd better enjoy a swim before we head back inland later in the day. No bikini shots, but here are some feet pics instead. After a swim and a shower, we were back on our way, onto the last leg of the Great Ocean Road, towards Warrnambool, where we would head north towards the Grampians mountain range. This last leg to Warrnambool was extremely forgettable, with no incredible views of the ocean or forested mountain ranges. We may have just been a little bit spoiled from the last couple of days. Once in Warrnambool, we saw the sights. Ate some food and said goodbye to Carl for a few hours, as he had some family to visit further on down the coast. Meanwhile, we headed north along some much more deserted roads, making for a much more relaxing ride. made it to the foot of the mountains to Dunkeld before we decided on some luxury and got the last spot in the caravan park. After meeting back up with Carl, we put on our best going out gear and hit the town. Day 4 started with me getting up early and hauling my hungover ass down the street for a cookie and coffee, while everyone else packed up their gear.
And here I am using my legs like a sucker.
Today would be our last day of the trip, whether we liked it or not. It was forecast to rain heavily for the next couple of days, starting that afternoon, so we were keen on getting home before it started. The plan was much the same as when I came here solo, heading up Victoria Valley, then heading north to Hall's Gap. After that, take the twisty-turny scenic road northwest on our way back to the Western Highway, where we'd say our goodbyes to Carl for a second time, and then gradually all go our separate ways. After some lunch of hot pies with Dead Horse, and of course some ice cream from the ice creamery, it was time to tackle the last leg of the trip. We had to stop at the top to see some magnificent sights. But eventually we had to head back down the mountain and head for the highway and what felt like back to our day-to-day lives. Stopping to say goodbye to Carl and to rearrange some important luggage, we headed left towards Horsham while he headed right. As we carried on, we slowly split off from one another. Jarrod in Horsham, Ben at Dimbula, until it was just myself trying to beat the ominous black clouds that were heading my direction. This was the storm that we'd been trying to miss since we left Dunkeld. And I didn't quite make it. 5 minutes before home, the heavens opened and the wind was howling. But if ever a trip would hold off on raining until 5 minutes from home, it would be a bunch of happy lambs. Thanks for watching. No new trips planned yet, so give us some suggestions in the comments, and hope to see you in the next one.